I found out my parents used my college fund to pay off my brother's DUI, so I exposed them at Thanksgiving. I, 22F, just destroyed my family's Thanksgiving and possibly our entire relationship going forward. I'm shaking as I type this, but I need to get it off my chest and figure out if I went too far. My entire life, my parents promised me they were saving for my college education. Your future is secure, they'd say. We've been putting money away since you were born. I worked my ass off in high school, straight A's, captain of the debate team, volunteer work every weekend, while my brother Jake, 25 million, partied his way through community college before dropping out after 3 semesters. 3 months ago, I got accepted to my dream school with a partial scholarship that would cover about 40% of the costs. I was over the moon. When I asked my parents about accessing my college fund for the remaining tuition, they got weird. Dad mumbled something about market fluctuations and Mom suddenly needed to check on dinner. They kept dodging the conversation for days until I finally cornered them after dinner one night. They admitted there was only $3,000 left, not nearly enough for even a semester. I was confused, devastated. They promised me roughly $40,000 had been saved. When I pressed them, Dad got defensive, saying, "Life happens, Emma. Sometimes investments don't work out." Mom just kept saying, "We'll figure something out, honey." But something in their eyes told me they weren't being honest. For weeks I tried to believe them. Maybe they had made bad investments. Maybe the economy had screwed them over. But then little things started adding up. Mom's new SUV purchased last year, the kitchen renovation, Dad's golf club membership. None of it made sense if they were struggling financially. Last week I was looking for my birth certificate in Dad's home office when I found bank statements from last year. That's when I saw it. A withdrawal of $35,000 with a memo. Legal fees, Jake. The date matched exactly when my brother got his 3rd DUI. The one where he totaled someone's car and nearly killed himself. My heart stopped. They'd emptied my college fund to bail out my brother and pay for his lawyer, court fees, and rehab. The money that was supposed to secure my future was gone because Jake couldn't call a fucking Uber. I sat there for hours, going through more statements, finding smaller withdrawals labeled things like Jake rent and Jake car insurance. They'd been supporting him completely while letting him live in their basement, playing video games, and working part-time at his friend's vape shop. What killed me wasn't just the money, it was the lying. For months, they let me believe my dreams were still within reach. They watched me excitedly plan my class schedule and look at apartments near campus. They even helped me shop for dorm supplies, all while knowing I couldn't afford to go. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the nights I stayed up until 3 a.m., studying while Jake was out partying. All the weekends I spent volunteering and building my resume while he slept off hangovers. All for nothing. Because in my family, failure is rewarded and success is expected to fend for itself. I spent the next day crying in my room, ignoring my mom's knocks and concerned texts. I needed time to figure out what to do. My dream school suddenly seemed like a cruelly dangled carrot, and my parents, the people I trusted most in the world, had betrayed me in the worst way. By evening, my sadness had hardened into something else. Something hot and sharp and unfamiliar. For the first time in my life, I was truly angry at my parents. Not annoyed, not frustrated, furious, and I knew I couldn't let this slide. I confronted my parents that night at dinner. Jake was out with friends, so it was just the 3 of us. I placed the bank statements on the table between bites of lasagna. "What are these?" Mom asked, reaching for them. "You know exactly what they are," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Bank statements showing you emptied my college fund for Jake's DUI." The color drained from her face. Dad stopped mid-chew, then slowly put down his fork. "Emma, it's not what you think," he started. "Really? Because I think you took the money you promised me my entire life and used it to bail out Jake." Again, Mom immediately started crying, that manipulative kind of crying she does when she wants to shut down a conversation. Dad went cold, his face hardening into the expression I've always feared. What were we supposed to do? "Let him go to jail?" Dad demanded, his voice rising. "You were supposed to be honest with me," I screamed back, surprising myself. "I never yell. You promised me that money. You watched me plan for a future you knew was impossible." Mom wiped her tears with a napkin. Your brother needed help, Emma. It was an emergency. He could have gone to prison. And what about my emergency? What about my future? Dad's face reddened. You'll figure it out. Student loans exist for a reason. Jake could have had his life ruined. That's when I lost it. And mine isn't ruined? Why does he always come first? Every single time. His disasters take priority over my achievements. That's not fair, Mom whispered. What's not fair is watching you two enable him for years while expecting me to just understand and sacrifice. What's not fair is lying to my face for months. They insisted they'd make it up to me somehow, but couldn't explain how. Dad actually suggested I start at community college, like Jake did. The same Jake who wasted that opportunity and now thinks showing up to work on time is a major accomplishment. We're still your parents, Dad said sternly, and you don't get to question our decisions on how we spend our money. Your money. I laughed bitterly. You told me that fun was my money, my future, my education. You promised. Mom reached for my hand. I pulled away. We love you both equally, she insisted. No, you don't, I said quietly. You love him more because he needs you more, and you love me less because I don't cause problems. I went upstairs and packed a bag. Mom followed me, begging me to calm down, saying I was overreacting. Dad stood in the doorway of my bedroom, arms crossed, telling me I was being childish. I called my best friend Sarah, who immediately offered her couch. When I came back downstairs with my suitcase, Dad said, If you leave this house right now, don't expect things to be the same when you come back. I looked him straight in the eye. They already aren't. I moved in with Sarah that night. My parents have been blowing up my phone since, alternating between guilt trips and angry demands that I come home and discuss this like adults. Jake texted once to say I was being dramatic and that family helps family, rich coming from someone who only takes and never gives. Thanksgiving was at my grandparents' house yesterday. I wasn't going to go, but my grandma personally called and begged me to come. Family needs to be together on holidays, she said in that soft, quavering voice I can never refuse. I couldn't say no to her. The Thanksgiving explosion. I arrived late to Thanksgiving dinner. Everyone was already seated. My parents, Jake, grandparents, 2 aunts and their husbands, my 3 cousins and their partners, 20 people total, all laughing and talking over each other as they passed around turkey and stuffing. The noise died down when I walked in. The tension when I appeared was thick enough to choke on. Mom jumped up, trying to act normal. Emma, you made it. She tried to hug me, but I stiffened. Dad just nodded from his seat at the head of the table. Jake didn't even look up from his plate. Grandma guided me to the empty seat they'd saved, right between Mom and Jake. Of course, I sat down and mechanically filled my plate when dishes came my way, not really seeing the food. So, Emma, how's school going? My cousin Megan asked, clearly trying to ease the awkwardness. Fine, I muttered, stabbing at my mashed potatoes. Dinner was a parade of awkward small talk. Everyone could sense something was wrong. Mom kept touching my arm whenever she spoke, like she was trying to establish some connection. Jake acted like I was invisible. Then Grandpa, who has always been my biggest cheerleader, asked innocently about my college plans. Stanford, right? When do you start? Before I could answer, my uncle raised a glass. To Emma's bright future, the first one in the family to go to an elite school. We're all so proud. Something in me broke. Maybe it was seeing Jake sitting there smugly, shoveling food into his mouth. Maybe it was my parents exchanging nervous glances across the table. Or maybe it was just 3 weeks of pain finally finding its outlet. Actually, I said, my voice shaking, I wanted to thank my brother for his contribution to my education. The table went quiet. Jake looked up, confused. Jake's last DUI was so expensive that Mom and Dad emptied my college fund to cover it. $35,000 gone. So I guess I should thank him for teaching me that, in this family, screwing up is more rewarded than working hard. Grandma gasped. My aunt's fork clattered onto her plate. My youngest cousin whispered, "What's a DUI?" and was frantically shushed. Dad stood up, knocking his chair backward. "Emma, that's enough." "No, it's not enough." I was standing too now, tears streaming down my face. I found the bank statements. "Dad, You promised me that money my whole life. You let me believe in a future you knew was impossible." Mom was crying. "Please, Emma, not here. Not now." Jake rolled his eyes. "Christ, just take out loans like everyone else. Not everyone gets a free ride." I turned on him, years of resentment pouring out. "You don't get to speak. You've had 3 DUIs, Jake. 3. You almost killed someone, and they keep bailing you out while I lose everything I worked for." "You always think you're so perfect," he spat. "I don't need to be perfect. I just needed to be supported the same way you are." Dad was red-faced. "That's not fair, Emma. Your brother has struggled with what? Taking responsibility? Growing up? Meanwhile, I did everything right and get punished for it." Grandpa tried to intervene. Now let's all just... No, Grandpa. They need to hear this. They promised me this money since I was a little girl. They watched me work for scholarships and build my future around their promise. Then they gave it all to Jake because he can't stop drinking and driving. My cousin's husband whispered something about maybe checking the football score and tried to slip away. My aunt was staring at Jake like she'd never seen him before. 3 DUIs, my other aunt asked quietly. "Tina, you never told us it was that bad." Mom buried her face in her hands. I grabbed my coat from the back of my chair. "I'm sorry, Grandma. I didn't want to ruin dinner. But I can't sit here pretending everything's okay when it's not." "Emma, wait," Grandma called as I headed for the door. But I was already gone, tears blurring my vision as I fumbled for my car keys. The sound of raised voices spilling out behind me. Update, 2 days later. My phone has been a war zone since Thanksgiving. My parents are furious that I aired family business and humiliated everyone. Jake sent a rambling text about how I've always been jealous of him, which is so absurd I almost laughed. But something unexpected has happened. My extended family is rallying around me. It turns out, my grandparents had been contributing to my college fund over the years. Every birthday and Christmas they put money aside, believing it was going toward my education. They had no idea the fund was empty. My grandfather was especially upset. He'd worked overtime at his job well into his 70s specifically to help with my college expenses. My mom's sister, Aunt Linda, called me privately. She was setting aside $10,000 as a graduation gift for me, intending it for my education or first apartment. "I had no idea things were this bad," she said. "Your parents should have asked for help instead of taking your future. Even my cousins have reached out with supportive messages. Megan offered me her spare room if I wanted to get away for a while. My uncle sent a lengthy email about how proud he is of me for standing up for myself. Grandpa showed up at Sarah's apartment this morning, unannounced. He handed me a check for $15,000. "This was meant for a new boat," he said with a sad smile. "But education is a better investment." I tried to refuse, my throat tight. "Grandpa, I can't take your boat money." "Yes, you can." His weathered hand covered mine. "Your parents made a mistake, Emma, a big one. But don't let pride stop you from accepting help when it's offered with love." We cried together on Sarah's lumpy couch. He told me how he worked 2 jobs to put my dad through college, how he made sacrifices so his children wouldn't have to struggle like he did. The money was supposed to keep flowing forward, not backward, he said. After he left, Aunt Linda called again. She lives 3 hours away, near State University. It's not Stanford, but it's a good school with a solid program in my field. She offered her spare room rent-free if I transferred there. "You could start in January," she said. "New year, new beginning." Between Grandpa's check, my partial scholarship, which I can transfer, and Aunt Linda's offer, I might actually be able to start college next semester. Not at my dream school, but somewhere. I'm overwhelmed by their kindness, but still so angry at my parents and Jake. Mom texted saying they're disappointed in how I handled things, and that I humiliated the family. They want me to apologize to everyone, especially Jake, who's going through a hard time. Dad left a voicemail saying I've always been the responsible one, and he expected better from me. The irony of him lecturing me about responsibility while enabling Jake's irresponsibility is apparently lost on him. I haven't responded to either of them yet. I don't know if I can forgive them, especially when they're still not acknowledging what they did. They're more concerned with appearances than with the fact that they betrayed me. For now, I'm researching transfer applications to State University and helping Sarah decorate her apartment for Christmas. It's not the life I planned, but at least it's moving forward. Update, 1 week later. Dad showed up at Sarah's apartment today. I almost didn't let him in, but Sarah squeezed my hand and whispered, "Hear him out, then decide." He looked smaller somehow, standing awkwardly in Sarah's tiny living room. The confident businessman I've known all my life seemed diminished, with dark circles under his eyes and new lines on his face. "Your mother and I made a mistake," he said, sitting stiffly on the edge of the couch. "We should have been honest with you from the beginning. I waited for more, but that was it. No real apology for taking the money, just for hiding it. So you still think it was right to use my college fund for Jake's mess?" He sighed heavily, running a hand through his thinning hair. "Emma, you don't understand what it's like to have a child with addiction issues. The fear that consumes you. The constant worry that next time you'll get a call from the morgue instead of the police station. And you don't understand what it's like to be the child whose future always comes second," I replied quietly, "to watch someone get endless chances while you get none." The conversation went in circles. Dad admitted they should have told me sooner, but insisted they had no choice about using the money. He talked about Jake's disease and how they couldn't let him face jail time in his condition. When I pointed out that consequences might actually help Jake, Dad got defensive. "We're still supporting your education," he insisted, "just not all at once." Dad finally said they could maybe contribute $200 monthly toward my education, but Jake needs ongoing support for his recovery. I told him about Grandpa's check and Aunt Linda's offer. His face changed, hardening. "You shouldn't have accepted that. Your grandfather can't afford to give away that kind of money at his age. And Linda doesn't know what she's getting into, offering open-ended housing." That's when I realized nothing had changed. In their world, everyone should sacrifice for Jake, but Jake is never expected to face consequences. And now they were angry that others were willing to help me in ways they wouldn't. "I'll be moving to Aunt Linda's next month," I told him. "I've already applied to state for the spring semester." Dad left, looking defeated, pausing at the door. "Your mother misses you. She cries every night. It was meant to make me feel guilty, but instead, I just felt tired. I missed the parents I thought I had." I replied, "The ones who kept their promises." After he left, Sarah hugged me. "You did good," she said. "You stood your ground." Jake called later that night, clearly drunk despite his claims of being in recovery. He alternated between slurred apologies and accusations, saying I've always thought I'm better than everyone, and that I don't understand how hard his life is. When he started crying about how I've turned the family against him, I hung up. Mom sent a long text about family loyalty and forgiveness, with no acknowledgement of what they'd done. I responded simply, "I'm willing to work on forgiving, but not while everyone pretends what happened was okay." She hasn't replied. Tomorrow, I'm visiting State University with Aunt Linda. It's not where I imagined myself, but it's a step forward. And right now, that's all I can ask for. Update, 1 month later. I'm writing this from my new room at Aunt Linda's. The walls are a faded yellow that reminds me of summer, and there's a window seat where I can watch the snow fall over her backyard. It's peaceful here, different, but good. I've enrolled in spring classes at State University. My scholarship transferred at a reduced rate, but combined with Grandpa's money, I can cover the first year. It's not Stanford, but the journalism program is solid, and I've already connected with a professor who's helping me apply for additional scholarships. Aunt Linda is a revelation. She makes breakfast every morning and leaves post-it notes with encouraging quotes on the bathroom mirror. We watch terrible reality TV together at night and laugh until our sides hurt. She doesn't tiptoe around what happened, but doesn't dwell on it either. "Sometimes the family you make is better than the family you're born to," she told me yesterday. "And sometimes they're the same people, just in different combinations." Mom and Dad sent a card with $500, calling it the first installment of what they owe me. The card said they're working on a plan to help more substantially. I appreciated the gesture, but know it'll never amount to what was promised. Our phone conversations remain strained, 5-minute exchanges of surface-level updates that avoid any mention of Jake or money. Christmas is coming. Aunt Linda invited my parents to join us, but they declined, saying they need to be there for Jake during the holidays. I pretended this didn't hurt, But Linda saw through it and planned an elaborate Christmas Eve with her friends instead. My chosen family, she calls them. The biggest surprise was a message from Jake's ex-girlfriend, Melissa. We were never close, but she reached out on Instagram to check on me. She told me Jake has been telling everyone that I abandoned the family and don't care about his struggles. She thought I should know. That was the final straw. I wrote Jake a long email explaining that I love him, but can't support his self-destruction anymore. I told him that real love means wanting someone to be better, not enabling them to stay broken. I said I hope he gets real help, not just parents who clean up his messes. I didn't expect a response. To my shock, he called the next day, sober, subdued. "I'm sorry," he said simply. "You're right about everything." We talked for 2 hours. He admitted he's been an addict since high school, that he resented my achievements because they highlighted his failures, that he knew about the college fund and said nothing. He's entered a serious rehab program, not the resort-style place my parents sent him to before. He said watching our family fracture finally scared him straight. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said before hanging up, "but I want to be someone worthy of forgiveness someday. I don't know if it'll stick." I've seen Jake make promises before, but something felt different this time. A rawness, a humility I've never heard from him. For the first time in months, I slept through the night without waking up angry. Final update, 6 months later. Life has settled into a new normal. I'm finishing my first semester at State with a 3.8 GPA. My journalism professor says I have real talent and has recommended me for a summer internship at the local paper. Aunt Linda and I have settled into a comfortable routine. She's become more than just my aunt. She's my mentor, my friend, my surrogate mother in many ways. My relationship with my parents is slowly healing, though I doubt things will ever be the same. After 3 months of $200 checks that felt more like guilt payments than support, they finally sat down with a financial advisor. They've admitted they made a terrible choice and have committed to contributing $500 monthly to my new education fund. It's not what was promised, but it helps, and the acknowledgement means more than the money. Jake is 6 months sober, his longest stretch ever. He moved out of our parents' house and into a sober living facility. He's working full-time at a lumber yard and taking night classes in construction management. We talk weekly, careful conversations that are building something new between us. He's paying me back in small amounts, $1.50 here, $100 there. It's not about the money, which will take years to repay at this rate. It's about him finally taking responsibility. Mom calls every Sunday now. Our conversations are longer, though we still dance around certain topics. She started therapy, something she always dismissed as unnecessary before. Last week, she actually said, "I enabled Jake because it was easier than watching him fail. I failed you both by doing that." It wasn't quite an apology, but it was close. Dad is trying in his own way. He sent me his old laptop when mine died, helped me research summer internships, forwarded articles about journalism careers, small things, but meaningful. Thanksgiving is approaching again. Aunt Linda is hosting this year. Everyone will be there, including my parents and Jake. I'm nervous but ready. Last year, I exposed a festering wound. This year, we'll see if it's healing properly. The college fund betrayal broke something in me. My blind trust in my parents, my willingness to always come second, my belief that family loyalty meant silently accepting mistreatment. But in losing those things, I found my voice and my boundaries. I discovered family members who value me, not for being perfect or compliant, but simply for being me. Sometimes family wounds can't be fully healed, only scarred over, but those scars remind me that I'm stronger than I knew, that I can fight for myself when no one else will, that I deserve the same support and chances that others receive without question. I don't know what my relationship with my parents will look like in 5 years or with Jake, but I know it will be honest. And sometimes, that's enough.